Vajrababu from Nam Tamil, America. I'd like to welcome you all to our session. This is a continuation to our previous session on education policy from Nam Tamil Kachi Manifesto. Our next speaker is Shravan. Hello, Shravan. Welcome to our session. And what is your thoughts like to share based on Ratran's speech? And you can share your thoughts on educational infrastructure or any other points you like to share with us.
Yes, sure. Thank you for having me on the show, Vajra. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I'd like to touch upon few important points from the Nam Tamil Kachi Manifesto and the key points that Seemananan has been speaking over the last decade. The first one I want to touch is on the mother tongue based education. It is extremely important based on my personal experience as well. I did my schooling in English education only. When by chance I got to travel around the world for various projects, I worked in China for 5 years where I had to interact with many Southeast Asian nations. And now I'm here in Canada and I've traveled to African countries. So everywhere you go, people learn and study in their mother tongue only. It helps them to think. We think in our mother tongue, right? So it helps them to think, it helps them to create. You'd be surprised when I did my Asia migration projects based out of China. Whenever I do some screen sharing with Japanese users or Philippines users or Korean users, or even Indonesia and Vietnam, they all have their computers and the languages installed in their mother tongue languages. Barring Philippines, which is now slowly moving towards English, other countries, when we screen share with them, we won't even know what is mentioned on their screens. So only based on the icons, we used to help them out, and they used to come with translators to work on our projects. So being studying in mother tongue and being able to participate and deliver in global solutions, these countries are excelling. Why can't we do that as well? So we can study in Tamil, we can parallelly learn equivalent things in English, and we can do wonders by making people study in English and having mother tongue in Tamil. We are restricting the people on their vision, their creativity, and their thoughts, and by which the way to build new things are vanishing. So what we can do is we can have private schools even. So say for example, if some school of a good brand is doing well in education, they can even attempt to have Tamil as their medium of language. They can have equivalent parallel learning in English. So learning in two languages is no harm at all. It's not difficult at all. I was born in Chennai, but as I've been to other states in India, I can now speak Kannada, Telugu as well. So based on where you reside, easily you can pick up languages. So learning in mother tongue is a very quintessential thing that should be propagated within our states in India. So that is one important point that Nam Tamlar Kachi touches upon. We need to work towards that, even if it's private or even if it's government. We need to have two languages together. So some people might argue why we should go for English or rather other languages, and they argue that English is not spoken in China or in European countries, in Africa, and so on. But the thing is, I lived in China for 5 years. You could see at least little English somewhere or the other. Everything will be in Mandarin. All the boards, signages, books, YouTube videos, apps, everything will be in Chinese. But at the same time, if you know English, you can manage a little bit, right? Even in the airports and everywhere, they have Chinese, Mandarin, but along with that, you could see tiny English. There are hardly any speakers of English, but you can still manage. So that managing point, so you even the air traffic language is English only. So that managing point should be at the driving point to have English as the link language and learning in mother tongue. So that's the first emphasis that Seemananan has been talking for a long time. I've I've begun to see the benefits of it when I travel to these countries. So that's my first point. The second is on enticing students. to come to school regularly and making them think to achieve more. See, there is a recent video where some government school teachers have been dancing and teaching students. I see a lot of negative comments saying, why should the teachers dance, or why should the teachers take such creative steps to the school going students? And they say it was not the situation 10, 20 years ago. Yes, the times are evolving, and we need to attract students. Those mechanisms are extremely good ones to make children attentive. So when you do such creative things, children will have that, eagerness to go to school every day, not miss any classes, at least for that attractive and creative methods. So those methods that Seeman Anand has been talking about, I've seen that literally in many places working out. I belong to the Scouts and Guides, so in Tamil it's Saranariyakam. The Scouts and Guides movement is there all around the world. In Scouts and Guides movement, we do all these attractive methods of teaching. So I've had personal experience when we do such creative steps, and when we do some sessions like songs or storytelling or outdoor gaming activity, people come on time. So we used to have our Scouts classes in the Sundays morning 6 o'clock. Imagine if someone would even turn up, but because of the interest that we create with such innovative methods of teaching, people will automatically come, and it's very easier to make them learn things. The biggest responsibility of teacher is to make people think and create on their own. It's not just we teach the things that are in the books. That's not going to help. We need to make them think beyond boundaries and make them create. We need to inspire them. So in order to inspire students, we need to make use such creative stuff. Other two areas which I'd like to quickly touch upon. One is on the infrastructure. So everyone would argue already the government schooling is free in Tamil Nadu, and why Seeman talks about free education again. The schooling system is free in Tamil Nadu, yes, but the quality isn't. So we need to ensure that we pump enough money to develop infrastructure. We are already paying good amount of salaries to the teachers, so we need to ensure that the infrastructure is up to level. So same like Ratnamanan told, on giving good equipments and good infrastructure will entice students. It will create a lot of interest to students. It will avoid diversion, and it will help them achieve more. So the last point I would want to touch is on the policy making. So Tamil Nadu is vehemently opposing NEET exams, which is right. So they argue that many poor students are also clearing NEET exams, but how? How are they clearing? They are going to coaching classes aided by many trusts and other support agencies. So this needs to stop. So the NEET exam should be scrapped off. We need to have a system on our own. Okay, already if you're saying that the quality would improve with NEET exam, let's have an exam within our Tamil Nadu state. So we should get an exemption. So on these lines of policy making, it should be on social justice. It should be accessible to everyone. And that's where we should that we will succeed. So on these points, our Nam Tamlar Kachi manifesto has elaborated a lot. We who have traveled abroad after listening Seeman and speeches, we are able to see that live in front of us in these countries. So it is time that we give implementation to those thoughts. It's time to get Nam Tamlar Kachi elected soon, so we can implement all these ideas, and we can take it towards successful governance. Thank you, Vajra, for giving this opportunity.
Thank you, Sean. Wonderful, great points, and thanks for sharing your experience. You traveled so many countries, Asia and Africa, and you shared the great points where the people learn in their mother tongue and they excel. That's a great point. You brought on the creativity method of teaching, where the teachers dance and teach the students, which basically helps the students to learn better and make the learning a easier one. It increases the students' creativity. Those are all excellent point. And the one thing I liked is think beyond boundaries. So that's a very good point you brought out. And yeah, I agree. The educational infrastructure. Uh, we people pay taxes, and education is one of the key thing, the basic right people should get, and government should uh, provide the basic right to the people. Proper education infrastructure is a must. Every people should get that. Great points. And on the need, you brought a very good point. Hope we'll get very good justice from the government. Yeah, that's a great point. Thank you, Shravan, and sharing your thoughts on education infrastructure and some of your the great way where people can learn in their mother tongue, and they can excel for a better life. Thank you. Now let's move on to our next speaker. Let's welcome Selva, who is going to share his thought on failures on the education system, and how the education system is corrupted uh, in the recent times. Uh, Selva, over to you.
Hey, thank you, Vajra, for this opportunity. It was wonderful to hear from Ratnamanna about the CTE program. It was very new information for me. Even I was not aware, living in the US for the past 7 years. These are wonderful, areas of opportunities for kids in US to grow. And thank you, Shravan, for your wonderful insight into the education systems around the globe. That was very refreshing to know. But when compared to the other nations, while I was listening to you people, uh, recently there was some boasting by the current government that Tamil Nadu's higher education enrollment rate is the highest in India, right? It's around 80 percentage when compared to Gujarat, which is 42 percentage, right? So, well, the education, the higher education enrollment rate is higher just because it was a long-term effort, a long-term effect of Kamarajar building the basic education system, and he was ensuring that every 10 kilometers there was a school inside Tamil Nadu, and he brought the infrastructure in place. But see where we are right now. You see, there are private institutions all over Tamil Nadu, right? And initially there was state board, and after that came the matriculation board, and now the CBSE, right? And all of these syllabuses were meant to be far superior than the state board, right? And then when I was studying, I think you guys can relate to me what I'm saying. When I was doing my matriculation program, I did my matriculation program, and mostly it was in English medium, right? And there was emphasis on additional work, and there was no rut learning. So, there was emphasis on understanding the concepts rather than there is very specific answers to a question, right? So I would share an example. The same state board person who was studying with me in English, right? He would say an answer to convert a sentence from active to passive sentence. In my exams, there was no standard answer, right? I could convert it anyway, and then the teacher would give me marks for that because I understood the concept. But in the state syllabus, the scoring was not done that way. You know what I mean? So slowly, the education system being privatized has brought a lot of conceptual understanding gap between people who studied state syllabus and then matriculation and then the CBSE. So when the admission to the colleges was based upon exams which emphasize on conceptual understanding, uh, the private schools was the way to go for the parents. They naturally opted for it, right? So they were left with no option to send their bright kids who are doing very good. They wanted to push forward, and then they sent all of these kids to the private institutions, and that became a commodity, right? The education has become a commodity, and every other kid in India, uh, is in a private school doing matriculation or CBSE rather than the state board. And slowly, the infrastructure is only available to the kids who are from the rural area, people who are in the you know backward communities, or like people who are scheduled castes, scheduled tribes. Those people are getting access to the basic infrastructure, which the quality has been degraded very specifically to favor these private institutions. That's what is happening all around in Tamil Nadu now. But how could Nam Tamlar Katchi counter this? It's very exciting and very refreshing to know that NTK has thought about this in the manifesto. And some of the policies I just wanted to highlight is that it would bring equity in education. It's a very important policy change, right? Equity. When I say equity, a student who goes to a government school will learn the same facilities, will have the same infrastructure as a private school. That's the level for which the NTK is aiming to bring the education system to. And how would it bring to? One of the important policy changes NTK says is that it won't give licenses for any new private schools. Can you believe it? So that's one of the NTK policies. If NTK comes to that, they will do it. The second policy change is that there will be supervisory committees for the private schools and those schools that are volunteering to pick up maintenance of a lake or a road or a city infrastructure. Those private colleges will be given priority over the other private institutions, right? So that's exactly what is happening in US. When I see my son goes to a school called Pride Elementary, and then it was actually helping to improve the entire community, right? And then they took the construction of the development of the park nearby. They contributed to the school board is contributing to the betterment of the community. That's how the private school is run here in US. The government is aiding those schools. So this is a very important policy change, what I see, which will bring down the corruption, and it will counter the failure of the education system right now, right? So these are some of the important policy changes which I see. The another thing which Shravan pointed about is that the salaries for the teachers, right? Nowadays the salaries for the government teachers has been raised to a substantial level, but not up to par with the CBSE kind of schools, where the salary is revised every 2 years, right? And the training for the teachers in NTK manifesto, it clearly states that teachers will be given 2 years, apart from the 2 years of basic training which they get, they are going to be trained especially on the mother tongue, right? So mother tongue education, Shravan pointed out a very important point that we could perform well in the world community just by being mother tongue learner, right? So there will be separate training for the government teachers to teach in mother tongue, be in mother tongue. That's a very important policy change which I see. So what I see from the statistics is that as I shared earlier, there was teacher absenteeism has gone up to 25% in India. It was in 12 percentage. It is a very interesting statistic. Just before 20 years it was 12 percentage, now it is 25 percentage. Why? What happened to the motivation for the teachers, right? So there is a very important policy changes which NTK is going to bring. It is going to make sure that if there are couples who are having jobs in two different cities, there will be arrangements to be getting jobs in the same city. That motivates the teachers, right? Very important policy change. Another policy change is that all the teachers will not be forced to take up election duty or any other duty which right now the government is forcing these teachers to do, right? So these are some of the policy changes which I see is very exciting and revolutionary with respect to countering the amount of privatization and the kind of corruption that is happening in the system. So I'm seeing a very exciting future with respect to NTK coming to power. And as I would just want to close my thoughts with the saying that Annan always says this, right? A resource of a country, the main resource of a country is the human resource. And for that, you have to have a healthy mind and a healthy body, right? So when we have both of these, we are going to have healthy children and as well as bright and intelligent children, right? So we are going to focus on the NTK clearly states that the nutrition is going to be focused on, and the education system, when it is equitable for everybody, there won't be any corruption. And just like you know in US or any other country, we would expect a very great system, because That's the basic of any nation for the human resources. uh, Back to you, Vajra.
Thank you, Selva, for sharing your thoughts. You brought really a good points. You brought the data on the state of education. Education became a commodity. Most of us agree it's not good. I agree with that point. Regulations to private schools, and the private schools will be recognized based on the contribution to the community. Those are all very good points. Motivation to the teachers, which is key in the education system. Yeah, if a teacher is motivated, teacher can able to bring up good students, and they can support students. They can make students a great leader, and we will get a very great output from the schools basically if you have a very good teachers. So motivating teachers is a great one. And NTK, I hope will be bringing a lot of changes to the education system. And primary thing is, you said, you spoke about on keeping the kids healthy. When you keep yourself healthy, your mind will be healthy, and you can learn a lot, and that will shape a very good future for the student and to our country. Thank you all for joining, and I'd like to thank all the speakers joined our session and sharing their thoughts. And thank you once again. I'd like to our viewers, please subscribe the channel Nam Tamilar America to know more about Nam Tamilar Kachi Manifesto. We'd like to meet you on our next session. With that, I'll just close the session. We'll thank you and good night. Thank you all.
Thanks very much. Good night.